Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us.
Hello,
Um,
everyone. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the intro, Lisa. Appreciate it.
really appreciate it. I will kick it off by saying we wanted to do a podcast style because I feel like this is a little bit more interactive to have a conversation with Adam about what the future of observability is and how we can bring you along with us as our customers to make sure that we're giving you the information that you need. So let's start really by talking about what is observability and what that means, and also what is not just observability, but monitoring and troubleshooting and how observability and monitoring kind of differs in the broader scheme of things. So I'll ask Adam that question and he can kind of walk us through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Hadijah, for that. So, from a monitoring and troubleshooting perspective, we think of, signals like metrics, logs, and traces, and how a business uses those for application reliability, for infrastructure reliability. And those are great. Like they, as the slide kind of says there in the first little bit, like overall system health. But it can be tough, with all of that data and with kind of those different data sources converging to really get to mean time to resolve to zero. Like that's one of the goals historically of monitoring and troubleshooting. And so it again can be tough to kind of synthesize all of that down between those different signal types. And that's really where observability has come in and how we talk about, observability 2.0 and some of the things that we'll continue talking about. But yeah, that like signals element of metrics, traces, and logs, and people again kind of working across all of those to understand like, okay, we're getting these results from the field, and we feel like we're reacting to these things that are happening instead of being able to kind of proactively or more real time understand what is actually again kind of happening in our environment and maybe with and to the customers that we support, and how we can actually go about providing them a better, more stable experience again through that kind of be it application reliability or infrastructure reliability.
And that we've
That
kind
makes
of
sense.
established that vision of monitoring versus observability itself. Why do organizations invest in observability tool in the first place? Like, what's the impetus for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean it's really born out of that goal of mean time to resolve to zero. Like they're again trying to provide that better experience, and what we have found as Sumo Logic is that logs are really kind of that like base level, that atomic level. We talk about digital exhaust. That logs are the core of observability, and that's something every business is generating across their environment. When they create an application, for example, they create logic that is this is what our log format is going to look like. This is ideally how we're going to structure that. And that's great, and that's been good to a degree, but the structured word there is a kind of a key part of that, because not all data is structured. And so part of observability and really the evolution of observability has been the recognition that you don't always have the cleanest of environments. You have both structured data and unstructured data, and a lot of the impetus for that move, or why people are looking to kind of advance their posture on this, is the recognition of that kind of rich data that can exist in unstructured logs and unstructured data, and how to kind of mine that most effectively to help bring MTTR to zero, to find root cause analysis faster, all these acronyms that you hear, MTTR, RCA. We'll try and keep the acronyms to a minimum, or explain what
Please.
they are as we go along. But yeah, that unstructured data is a big component of that. And again, you get a lot, no doubt, from metrics, traces, and logs. Point in time events of CPU utilization in metrics. Traces are my components talking to one another effectively. Are we seeing kind of a breakdown in communication between parts of our system, and that's why issues are being experienced. But logs, again, are where really the rich contextual data lives. And again, being able to look at the unstructured components of that, make it structured, right? So bring it in a way where you can actually make sense of it, is a super critical component and something that we're finding across our customer conversations and conversations in the market, that is, increasingly important. It's not something that's, going away or diminishing in value in that regard.
And one of the things I wanted to double click on that you said is that you called out unstructured data. And one of maybe perhaps what we don't know is that the amount of unstructured data that actually comes in, it outweighs structured data. And so that's
Yeah.
why we really want to make sure that you understand that it's way more likely that the logs that you're getting are unstructured than they are structured.
Yeah, I saw a statistic just recently that was in healthcare, specifically like 80% of the data in healthcare is unstructured. And when you think about it, like it makes sense. Obviously you've got a lot of things where they're static or they're built into like, okay, this is like I mentioned, CPU utilization or something like that. But then on the other side, kind of the human side, you have things like doctor's notes, patient's notes, a nurse as they're walking around caring for people. And this is just one example of an
Mhm.
industry is pervasive across all industries. But it's really kind of a lot of those more human interaction points that, where that unstructured data lives. And those are some of the most critical things that you want to bring in and be able to address, as you're working on, again, application reliability, infrastructure reliability, and not kind of missing that human component. Now, not all unstructured data is things that people have written out, but nonetheless, it's something that you need to be able to format to make sure that you are understanding as it relates to the overall health of your environment.
And cutting down the formatting of that, and you mentioned MTTR, cutting down the format of that, it really does help you with your MTTR as well. Mean time to
Yeah.
resolve. No more acronyms. We're gonna try and do
Yeah. Meantime, result.
mean time
Yeah.
to resolve. And so when we think about then the elements that an organization might look for when they decide on choosing an observability solution, like what are some of the categories that they would think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two main components that kind of stand out. One is scalability. I mean, a lot of the businesses certainly that we work with, they may have some seasonality to their business where you can't just say like, here's who we are at a point in time, and our observability solution is gonna be that footprint for the next 2 years. Like most businesses are too dynamic for that, and the data that they are ingesting is growing, it's not diminishing. And so organizations are looking for solutions that can scale with them and do that easily and effectively, not something that's obviously painful for them. And one of the things that Sumo offers, from a like a flex licensing perspective, for example, is that on the ingest side, we're not punishing you for data that you're bringing in. One of the things that is always a challenge for businesses across the board from a decision making perspective is feeling like they're compromising one thing for another. We don't want our customers to have to choose what data they bring in, and then they're missing data that is maybe most important to them when they most need it. So that kind of scalability, that ability to rapidly scale ingest data, that's huge. And then the unstructured component of that as well, that is something that Sumo Logic is very kind of uniquely suited to handle, to be able to ingest unstructured data, to quickly and easily build a rule around how that should be seen and ingested into the system, and made more structured. That's a huge component as well. So again, I would say the scalability and the unstructured components are things that we hear our customers wanting and that Sumo Logic delivers on, very well in the market.
Yeah, I really liked how you talked about the scaling. I feel like that's something that, especially in this, we say dynamic environment where everybody's online, being able to scale efficiently
Yeah,
and as broadly as we can really does help our customers get the data that they need.
yeah, definitely.
So let's think through, we're in this, we've talked about dynamic observability and observability 2.0. Observability itself has been around for a while. Why hasn't that lived up to its expectation? And why do you think we have to move to this now 2.0 or dynamic observability
Yeah,
phase?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that as a matter of fact, our CEO wrote a great blog recently on this, like the failed, promise of observability, I think
Mhm.
is the name of it. But it really, not to hammer on this too much, but there's certainly the unstructured component of it. But observability 2.0 is also kind of synonymous with AI being brought into observability, and that being a force multiplier, as I kind of like to talk about it and think about it, because Hadijah, one of the things that our customers tell us is that they're just kind of overwhelmed by the
Mhm.
amount of data
Yeah.
that they have to look at, and it's really already become, but certainly is now more than kind of humans can deal with at scale. Being able to really look across all of the data sources that exist in an environment and expect someone to kind of make sense of this in any meaningful way is a Herculean ask to put it lightly. So AI being built on top of that, and being able to go in and ask natural language questions across all of your log data. That's both useful for seasoned practitioners who maybe know our query language and can go in and write parsing statements and dance across our logs on their keyboard. But not everyone has that skill set natively, and sometimes it's just
Mhm.
nice to say, like, here's what I think is happening.
Yep.
Tell me if this correlates with what you're seeing. I'm saying Sumo Logic, tell me if this correlates with what you're seeing across our data, and allowing machine learning and our AI components to go out and return results that might align with some report that you've received from the field, or some spike that you may have seen from a latency perspective. Going in and investigating that, like, AI is not the only thing that kind of defines observability 2.0, but it's the most prominent theme, I would say, going forward on, like, how we think about observability, how it matures, how it continues to provide value to the market. And so, I think that I don't know if this was your kind of along the lines of the next question you might ask, but I think from an AI perspective, we're in kind of early days. Like, I know it's been around for a while.
Mhm.
Even like my parents, are talking about using AI now, and talking about AI much like we talked about kind of the internet when it was new and kind of a burgeoning technology for consumers. But I think just like the internet and that experience where we didn't kind of know exactly how things were going to play out, and we were super impressed by the early results that we would get and the experience that we had. I think that that's where we are from an AI perspective right now. Like, we as great as it is and as powerful as it is, and useful, we don't even fully know kind of how it's going to unfold in this world, and that's exciting, actually, because it's already providing so much value that it's exciting to see where it's going to go.
So if we dig deeper into that a little bit, we talk about AI and it's like this I mean, I feel like it's like this overarching theme for everything that we do. Everything in life basically is now, there's something AI attached to it.
We talk about it so many times a
We've
day. Like,
we've
it's
talked
so
about
funny.
it.
Yeah.
We're now using it more than we thought we would. We're putting
Right.
information in. So in terms of observability, what are some of the things that it could help us do that we haven't been able to do before?
Yeah, I mean, again, one of those things just from a scale perspective is like that the volume of data that is out there, we could never, as people, we're not staffed. No business is staffed enough to just like throw people at the amount of data that's being generated. So, I mean, that's the most obvious thing is, again, it's just such a powerful tool to tell you what to look across the data and say, these are the areas that I see where you might already have a problem or you might soon have a problem, and kind of, getting ahead of those things where you're not just this reactive, it's more like proactive maintenance of things. So, that's a huge one. Just again, dealing with the scale. Um, yeah, I mean that's the thing that like stands out the most is like the scale of it. But then, there's also kind of like the agentic side in the future,
Mhm.
agent based, like there's a ton of possibility for the future. And it's gonna be fun to see those use cases fulfilled in the market. And as we have conversations with customers, like how they're seeing, these are the problems that I'm experiencing, and maybe AI can solve those, and having those conversations. It's fun. It's a fun time for sure.
So as companies think about their observability strategy and how to improve it, what are the next steps that they need to think through, especially with the AI component woven in overall, really?
Yeah, I think, just getting a better handle on the data that they're bringing in. A lot of companies, kind of going back to the monitoring and troubleshooting, have had a hard time just from an instrumentation perspective with things like traces and, metrics to some degree. Like logs are the pervasive thing that exists out there. So I think that um, that there is momentum around logs really being kind of that central point of truth, and where we can go to really understand what's happening in an environment. So I think that the kind of log as the central theme of where we understand that application and infrastructure challenges that you may experience. That's one of the big things. And then, I think that there's a something that helps us every day is like people are already working in AI across their lives. It's not just for people trying to do better on their term papers. It's something that is, again, very pervasive in the environment, in the business environment now as well. So, increased kind of just bumping up the base level of understanding of people of what AI is capable of, getting them more comfortable with it. That's kind of a big thing from an education perspective that businesses can do as well. And something that I wouldn't, underestimate the impact of is, again, kind of getting people comfortable with using AI in the context of business. But I think there's kind of like a Spider-Man problem there too, like responsibility power dynamic a little bit of getting people to
Nicely woven
understand.
in.
I wish I'd made a bet on how to tie that in ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, it's something very powerful. AI in general is a powerful tool, and we want to be responsible and respectful of how like data models are built with large language models, and how those interact. And so, yeah, I think that there's just general education to do across that spectrum to make sure people understand how best to use AI, like where the kind of guardrails are for an organization. And you already have, kind of like AI steering committees in businesses these days that are working on, exactly those kinds of things, that kind of form from a GRC, like a governance, part of the organization a lot of times. But yeah, I would say that's a component, just again to make sure that people understand what the business's guardrails are, how they can best use AI, and making that a part of their overall strategy and not just kind of like this piecemeal thing that they think of as a business.
So as we take this back to being personal for Sumo Logic, what are you excited about that we're building? Do you want to show anything that we showed some stuff at reInvent last year.
Yeah.
So first, let's start with what are you excited about what we're doing, and then what can we preview?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to see already Sumo Logic, looking across data and highlighting, we launched Copilot last year, our Mo Copilot, and it's been super fun to see that look across this, again, vast data sets and pick out, areas of issue, being able again to ask it questions and for it to generate questions based on or other kind of suggestions based on what you've typed in, and to see the evolution of that. I mean, everything in AI is an evolution. It's getting better daily. That includes, our AI components as we learn more, as the system matures. So it's been fun to see that growth, and it's been fun to kind of see, like, you ask Mo Copilot a question, and then you look down in the list of suggestions and see what would have been your natural kind of follow-on question, or like, oh, I didn't even think about it that way, and so those kinds of like aha moments as it relates to AI, and specifically our AI, has been a lot of fun. And to your second or kind of part of the question on dynamic observability, looking at it from the observability lens of, there's, customers are reporting, this kind of issue or error, and being able to go in and one, have that highlighted for you, from a dynamic observability perspective, but also to be able to dig in, to the raw logs directly from there, to go to Mo Copilot and to ask natural language questions. So again, using AI as kind of like the hub, but the spoke of what's possible from our ecosystem, and the troubleshooting that you're able to do, all from, let's just say, like an alert that comes in, is super powerful, and it's been fun to see. And I think we're getting really good feedback in the field, that it's those things are useful and that people are excited about the future. So
I really
that's
like
fun.
that we're trying to make our customers' lives easier. I feel like every
Yeah.
decision making is really to help you work smarter in a way,
Right.
and
Right.
save you time. I think you every engineer wants to focus on the building. So how do we help you?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, we were even just doing a demo for like our marketing org yesterday, and every time I see this, it's cool to me. But like in Mo Copilot, for example, when you ask it a question and it returns the results, it also puts the query line up there. So like what you would have had to have known from a query
Mhm.
perspective, essentially, to get those results where you just asked it a simple question. That's super educational as well. I haven't been with Sumo for super long, and so I'm learning how to structure queries better daily. And I find that interfacing with Mo Copilot, asking it questions, and for it to, show me the query language, line up there, is like very informative and educational, and helps build my own skill set within Sumo. So that's been just kind of a fun aside for me as well.
Very nice. Anything you want to preview or show us or?
Yeah, one thing that I would, and I can, let me see, can I share my screen? Yeah, yeah, perfect. Let me pull that up real quick, and let me know when y'all can see this.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So this is we do story lanes here at Sumo. So you, from our website, under the demo section, you can request a live demo, or you can go through actually these story lanes. And this is just kind of a guided walkthrough. So this is what we showed at reInvent. This will, diverge a little bit on our GA product that's coming up, but I just thought it might be interesting here. So this is again our dynamic observability story lane. We click get started here, and basically this is an e-commerce app, so nothing new here. But this AI generated service map will actually show here in the interface under the service intelligence section. So there'll be a service intelligence section there. on the left. And this service map that you see is AI generated. So it's building this out in real time, at the kind of point in time that you requested here, and is, essentially showing you the connection between all of these, front end, product catalog, shipping, payment, like all the components of the business right here. And then, as with anything in AI, it's good to kind of bring back in that human component. So like, did we get this right? And so that's something that is always nice to be able. I know with AI, just as an aside, like people are like, oh, it's going to replace people. It's like, well, no, you're always going to need people interfacing with AI to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, that it's delivering accurate results. Every time at the bottom of ChatGPT down there at the bottom, it's like, this might be right, it might be wrong. You should take a look at it before pass this along with indiscriminately. So that's nice to have that again, kind of human component built in. And as we kind of scroll through here, we see, all right, this looks good. And then there's like a summary of things. So based on the service map that was generated, here's what we believe the issues might be in your environment that you're experiencing, and being able to see that directly here in the interface. And then, as we kind of mentioned, there are maybe there's a service that's being highlighted as a potential problem. So we go and dig into that a little bit more, and kind of again look at that correlation between how the service map was seen and what we may be seeing in the environment from an experience perspective. And then one of the things that you can do, we've talked about Copilot a good bit in this session, but being able to go in and investigate directly from this service intelligence feed into Copilot and ask those native language questions. So show me error logs for front end services, for example, is what we see here. And so it immediately spits out what you saw below, analyze the error distribution. So it's going to give you a pie chart here and show you the errors that are being seen in the interface, what the separate, how many of one error versus the other error. And then we can kind of piece together, oh, okay, like the payment service here is the biggest piece of the wedge. It must be where the issue is happening from. And then so I can show the error logs from the payment service. And that's exactly what you see here, all of these errors that you can then dive into and figure out more specifically what's going wrong. So this one is caused by the discount eligibility query timeout. And so, okay, let's go and investigate that further. Like it's, telling us useful things here. And then so we're going to trace the journey where, this ID that we saw in the previous screen and what seems to be causing the issue. Let's take a deeper look into that. Give me a service as the field so that, again, we can kind of dig into this more specifically. And so we see here, that we're able to view the messages in chronological order, that now we can see that this server had a high CPU utilization. So instead of just like looking at a metric where it's high CPU utilization and trying to start from like, okay, I don't know. I don't know why that's happening. What does that link to? Here we were able to ask just a few questions and get to the cause of something that was a metric, but from logs, right? And so we're able to kind of take that investigation completely through using Copilot and get to the root cause of that. Now we can go and investigate that server, say, why is that happening? Fix the problem from there based on that kind of arc of discovery from a service map that was generated, and being able to actually go in and follow that all the way through using, again, just natural language. So I didn't type a single line of query there, but I was able to actually get to root cause analysis directly from those questions that I asked, which is, it's really, again, fun. It's not only useful for people who are newer to Sumo, but anyone who is more seasoned, again, just kind of that like easy ability to interact with the system is refreshing. And I think, something again to look forward to as AI expands is really, to your point, Hadijah, just making people's lives easier, making people more efficient and effective in their day jobs. That's super exciting as a business to be able to have that kind of impact.
Adam, we have a question
Yeah.
from the audience. So Greg is wondering, how dependent is the service intelligence on proper tagging of collectors, sources, etc.?
That's a great question. So yeah, there is definitely a correlation there on the service intelligence side. I mean, it was Greg, I think, right? Lisa, I should pull up the chat, but yeah, I mean, again, there's always going to be that kind of human component to make sure that you have at least some level of hygiene there, or that you can build that hygiene based in on on how your data is structured and really kind of tune that most effectively for your organization. But it's been pretty good in my experience thus far on that front. Great question. Hadijah, anything else on your side from kind of a question or?
No, I think we covered everything. I'm really happy in the direction that I am also happy in the direction that we're taking and what's coming at Sumo Logic. It feels like we're stepping in the right direction, and we've been talking about 2.0 for so long. It feels nice that we're finally able to say, and this is what we did,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, and put something out there, and we just like the entire anyone who is operating in AI. Again, it's a very rapidly evolving space, and it's exciting to see how our customers want to use the AI components of Sumo Logic, get that customer feedback in real time, and make adjustments. But it's been fun, like you say, to kind of realize
Mhm.
some of the vision of Observability 2.0 and to take it into the future.
Yeah. Exciting things to come, everyone.
Indeed.